Hey everyone, and welcome to our weekly live stream. If you've ever wondered about the real magic behind creating a lasting impact online, you are in the right place tonight. And we're diving deep into some insider secrets. Okay, and I'm talking about those hidden buying shortcuts that your brain loves. And also, we're going to talk about the mysterious art of crafting memorable content and how to set the perfect online atmosphere that keeps your audience coming back for more. And by the end of this live stream, you'll be buzzing with new ideas and insights. So stick around because you won't want to miss this. Um, Throughout my career, the intricate dance between psychology and business has utterly fascinated me. And diving into the human mind and understanding those subtle triggers and motivations, and then watching them play out in the marketplace is just nothing short of amazing. And this passion has not only shaped my career as a business and technology consultant, but it also has allowed me to harness the power of human behavior, and also creating strategies that resonate deeply with audiences that drive remarkable results. And every day, I'm reminded that at the heart of every successful business strategy is a profound understanding of human psychology. So tonight, I will be unveiling three secrets. Secret number one, the brain's hidden buying shortcuts. So we all have these little mental shortcuts known as cognitive biases. They're like our brain's autopilot settings. So, for example, ever notice how you are drawn to a product that your friend also bought? That's the power of social proof. By understanding and leveraging these biases, we can craft super relatable marketing strategies. Secret number two, the emotional magic behind memorable. So, emotions are the backbone of our decisions. So, remember that ad that probably made you laugh, or the campaign that maybe tugged at your heartstrings? Well, when we weave these emotions into our content, be it through humor, nostalgia, or even just a bit of suspense, okay, it sticks with people. And it's all about creating a connection between you and your audience that goes beyond just selling your product or your service. And then secret number three, how to create the perfect online atmosphere. So, have you ever walked into a store and felt overwhelmed by so many choices? Or maybe you found everything that's very easy to find. And that's how user experience in digital platform works. Okay, so if we keep it neat, intuitive, and maybe a little bit catchy, like a really bright buy now button, it can make all the difference in how effective our marketing strategy is. So think of it as setting up your online store or website in a way that feels cozy and inviting. So we're gonna go ahead and dive right in. Um, have you ever wondered why you make certain decisions or why certain ads catch your eye more than others? So let's talk about the world of human psychology tonight. And you'll discover the intricate workings of our minds that influence our daily actions and our choices. And it's more than just understanding emotions, it's about tapping into the very core of what makes us tick, what makes us react and engage with that content. So from our innate desires to our conditioned behaviors, understanding the basics of human psychology can be like having a roadmap to the complex maze of human behavior. And tonight we will decode the human mind together. Um, Ever caught yourself making snap judgments or jumping into conclusions just a bit too quickly? It's okay, because it's not just you. Okay, it's a universal human quirk that is known as cognitive bias, and these are little mental shortcuts or that our brains take based on our previous experiences, maybe beliefs and societal norms. Okay, so while they help us navigate complex situations faster, they can also cloud our judgment and lead to errors in decision making. So think of them as those sneaky mental filters that sometimes distort our perception of reality, and it makes us lean a certain direction or a certain way, even when the facts may suggest otherwise. But it's okay. Being aware of these biases is the first step, okay, to making more informed and more rational choices. So next time you're making a big decision, ask yourself, or maybe take a step back and ask yourself, is it truly what I think, or is my brain playing tricks on me? So let's see how we can apply this to our pricing strategy. You might find yourself thinking a $50 shirt is an absolute steal because it's hanging next to a $200 one. This is called an anchoring bias. And it's sneaky. It's a sneaky little trick that our brain plays on us when where the first price we see, it sets the tone for everything else. Okay, so when businesses get clever and put a high priced item, a high ticket item, right before something cheaper, it makes that cheaper item feel like a bargain. Like imagine you're browsing online, right? You're browsing online, you're shopping, and boom, right? There's this fancy premium thing priced way up there, right? But then you just scroll a little bit, you scroll down a little bit, there's a similar item that's way more in your budget. So even if you didn't plan on splurging, that initial high price makes the next one feel like such a steal. And it's a really good find. And retailers know about this. Okay, they're not just setting prices randomly or willy-nilly. They are playing 4D chess with our brains. And seriously, this anchoring thing can get us spending more without even realizing it. And it's crazy how our mind works and how savvy businesses use these little quirks to their advantage. So next time you're out shopping and if you think you've found the deal of the century, again, take a second to see if your brain is just anchoring. And when it comes to social proof, testimonials and reviews play a big part when it comes to our herd mentality. So if you've ever gone to a city, or have you ever gone to a city and picked a restaurant just because it had a long line outside? Or how about this? If you're scrolling online and you see a product with thousands of reviews, odds are you're going to trust it more than the one with just a few or a couple of reviews, right? That's social proof doing its magic. And it's like our brains are hardwired to think, well, if everyone else is into it, then it must be really good. And this herd mentality isn't something new. It's not something that somebody just came up with. It's been around for a very long time. And back then, even in the caveman days, right, if the whole tribe is eating a certain berry, right, excuse me, you'd probably think it seems safe. It seems safe enough, and you're going to go ahead and dive right into. Because and today it's not about berries, okay? It's about maybe those shoes that everyone's wearing, or the movie that everyone is raving about. And businesses totally get how this works, and they lean into it big time. And that's why you'll see websites flashing testimonials and showcasing their best reviews, right? And it's like they're saying, hey, look, everyone loves us, so you should too. So next time you find yourself gravitating towards something because everyone else seems to love just remember it's just our age-old herd mentality kicking in and showing up in the modern world. Now, what about the link between emotions and purchasing decisions? So have you ever bought something because it gave you some sort of feeling, or because it felt right at the time? Like for example, let's say if it's a candle that reminds you of a certain event or a certain season, right? Or like fall, for example, or maybe a shirt in a certain color that just makes you happy. So it's crazy, but our emotions often have the steering wheel when it comes to shopping. Okay, so and sometimes it's not about need or logic. It's about how a product makes us feel. Okay, so brands, again, they totally know this, and that's why you'll see certain ads that are maybe heartwarming, right? Or products that's designed to tug at our heartstrings. So next time you're about to buy something because it just feels right, know that your emotions at that point are calling the shots. And let's talk about two types of emotions: positive and negative emotions. Um, Positive emotions like happiness, anticipation, and trust play a big, significant role in our everyday lives, and especially in our decisions. Okay, so we're gonna unpack this a little bit. So think about the last time you were super excited about maybe a vacation, a trip, or maybe a concert. So that feeling of anticipation might have made you more inclined to buy maybe a new outfit or a new wardrobe just for that trip, okay? Or maybe even upgrade your plane ticket so to have a better experience, right? And that's because when we're feeling hopeful or excited, we're often more optimistic about outcomes, and we are more willing to invest in certain items, right? And I don't know about you, but when I drop off or pick up someone at the airport, and then I smell that hint of jet fuel, that makes me want to buy a ticket and just fly somewhere. Okay, and I don't even think about it. It's just that desire that comes naturally. I don't know. Have you ever felt like that before, or maybe it's just me? But when it comes to purchasing decisions, trust plays a really big factor. So imagine you're choosing between two coffee shops. So one has glowing reviews. Actually, no, not reviews. Maybe it's a recommendation by your best friend. Okay, and the other one is sort of an unknown coffee shop, right? So most of us would lean towards the trusted recommendation, right? And that's because when someone we trust vouches for something, it drastically reduces our perception of risk and makes us feel secure in the choices that we make. And lastly, happiness. Okay, happiness is we can call it the golden emotion, right? So, and brands have been capitalizing on this for years. So remember those feel good commercials, or maybe heartwarming stories, or even like jingles that sound fun. Okay, they're not random, they're meticulously crafted to associate their products to happiness. Because when we're happy, we're more open, we're more loyal, and we are more likely to buy. So, next time a catchy ad or a glowing review puts a smile on your face, okay, remember the power of positive emotions. And on the other hand, we can also capitalize on how negative emotions play a part on our marketing strategy. So have you ever felt a little anxious when you're shopping online, you're shopping for something, and then you see only two items left? Okay. Or maybe that sudden urge to book that deal, that holiday deal, because the offer is, it says ending soon, right? So let's chat about how negative emotions like fear, urgency, and FOMO, okay, so fear of missing out, can be super persuasive. So first up, fear. Okay, it's one of those primal emotions wired into our brains, and marketers know all this too much. Um, think about those ads, for example, like ads for home security systems, where they paint a picture of a potential break-in. It's not just about it's it's not just about selling the home security system or the alarm. Okay, it's about selling you peace of mind, and the fear that kicks in, it gets you thinking, right? And the solution they offer seems like a no-brainer at that moment. That's fear. And then there's urgency. So that ticking clock, right? So brands love to use this tactic because it hacks our usual decision making process. So instead of weighing the pros and cons, we're rushed into making that quick decision, into taking action. And that's why Black Friday deals, right? Black Friday or Cyber Mondays are so profitable because it's set for a limited time. And that's urgency working its magic on us. Okay? And then lastly, who can forget FOMO, or fear of missing out? So when everyone's posting about this must-have gadget or maybe a trending Netflix show, nobody wants to be left out. We don't want to be left out. So companies latch into this phenomenon, right? And they're making us believe that we need to jump into the bandwagon or risk being left out. So next time you're feeling that itch to buy something because of a countdown timer, or maybe because everyone else is doing it, take a pause. Okay, take a pause and recognize that emotion, and then decide if it's genuinely worth it. Right? All right, let's chat about something super cool. It's the power of visual perception. So, when you're scrolling through your feed and suddenly there's an image or a video that just stops you from scrolling. And that's because our brains are incredibly tuned to visuals. We're very visual creatures, right? So, around 90% of the information transmitted to our brains are through our eyes, through our sight. Okay? It's like we're all walking around with these high-speed internet connections in our heads that are just reserved for images, for visualization. So next time you're considering whether to add a picture or a video to your post or maybe to your website, just remember, visuals aren't just eye candy. Okay, it's brain candy, and you can use that to your advantage if you want to persuade the people looking. Now, what about colors? Since we're visual people, we see a lot of different colors. Now, there's also this thing called color psychology. So, have you ever wondered why certain brands choose specific colors for their branding, maybe for their logo or their color, like their overall identity? It's all about color psychology. So, for example, you might notice that a lot of fast food restaurants use red, the color red. And that's because there's an effect, right? Red can actually stimulate your appetite and create a sense of urgency. So now, think about, say, tech brands, technology brands, or maybe health brands that are usually blue, right? So blue is known to evoke feelings of trust and credibility. So it's calming, it's dependable, and it makes you want to just really trust that brand or that company, even though you don't know anything about it. Now, when it comes to our reading, the way we read, there's also a psychology behind it, and there's two patterns, right? It's called the Z and the F patterns, and this is our reading behavior. So maybe you've caught yourself skimming a website, right? And when we skim a website, if you pay attention, you'll notice that the way we do is zigzag, right? So that's the Z pattern at play. It starts with our eyes being drawn from the top left. So in this case, the video, like the top left, and then we read through the right, right? And then we go back down to the left, then right, okay? And maybe the top left or the bottom left is or bottom right is a call to action or a menu, right? Then what happens is it's like a silent dance that our eyes do without even realizing it. Now let's talk about the F pattern. So those times when you're scanning through, maybe if you're reading a blog, right, or an article, often we read the top lines more thoroughly. Then as we move down to the page, it's not as thorough. We maybe just skim the second line and then it gets shorter. So it's like the F shape, right here. Am I doing it right? Yeah, the F shape. And this is why the most important stuff is often placed at the top. So that's also another psychology strategy. And both these patterns, the Z and the F pattern, reveal how our brains love structure and predictability. So if you're designing a web page or maybe you're creating content, keep these patterns in mind. And by placing the essential bits at the right spots, like from top to right, it can truly make a difference in keeping your audience engaged. So that's just the basics of psychology. That's secret number one. Okay. Now let's talk about secret number two, how we're going to now apply this knowledge about psychology into our digital marketing strategy. Because you see, our brains are just incredible. They're wired in such a way that a certain stimuli, like an image or a word or a phrase, can evoke powerful emotions. And emotions, they drive actions. Now think about the ads that if you're running ads, okay, think about the ads you create or maybe the content that you share online. Are they tapping into these emotional triggers? Because if they're not, you might be missing out on a powerful connection with your audience. And while logic and information, it's important, emotion often weighs heavier when it comes to decision-making processes. And just think about the last impulsive buy that you made. Was it because you really needed that thing, or did it just feel right? Right? And there are some emotional triggers that brands use every day, right? We talked about happiness, we talked about fear and FOMO, but there's also belonging, there's love, and there's curiosity. And by understanding and leveraging these emotional triggers, you can craft messages that deeply resonates with your audience. Now you might say, well, isn't that kind of manipulative? Well, it's not about manipulating our audience. It's really about connecting. It's about connection. So we still need to be authentic and genuine. Because if you try to force an emotion or an emotional trigger that doesn't align with your brand or who you are as a person, then your audience will just see right through it. Okay, and I want you to think about a campaign or a post that you've run recently. Did it connect with them emotionally? And if not, how can you incorporate these triggers moving forward? And in this segment, we've learned the immense power of emotional triggers. But I want you guys to hang tight because our next secret will dive into another realm of psychology that is super intriguing. But before we dive deep, let me just make sure. I didn't even check if we're actually live. Okay, so we are live. Um, so so applying these emotional triggers to our digital marketing strategy, right? Let's talk about the psychology behind storytelling, because we all love stories, right? Have you ever wondered why you can binge watch a whole TV series but maybe fall asleep when you're in a webinar, right? Or in some kind of class? It's all about our deep rooted love for storytelling and good stories, right? Since the time of cavemen, I'm gonna go all the way back. In the time of cavemen, and they're like, what do you call that? The wall drawings. We people, humans, have been sucker for stories, because stories are our way of connecting with other people. They help us. They help us make sense of things and relate to others, and even feel, it helps us feel less alone in the world, right? So think about it. When someone tells us a story, our brain isn't just listening to the words, right? We're feeling the emotions, we're visualizing the scenes. And sometimes, even, I don't know if this happens to you, but sometimes if it's a great story, sometimes you can even feel those senses come to light, right? Even like maybe an imaginary scent, right? And that's why sometimes we get goosebumps when we hear certain types of stories. That means our bodies are reacting to those emotions. And that's why sometimes it's easy to forget where you put your keys, but you can recall something or a story that happened from your childhood, right? And in a very vivid detail. So our brains, it's amazing. It's like sponges, right? They soak up stories better than facts, which is super interesting. Now, also consider like the fables that we all heard when we were kids, right? Like the tortoise. I don't know if you remember the tortoise and the hare, right? It's a fable, and these aren't just to entertain us, right? The intention of that fable is to break down life's complexities. So they turn big, complex concepts into simple, relatable snippets, right? So instead of lecturing us about patience, we hear about a determined tortoise proving everybody wrong, right? And here's the best part. In this age today, where we're constantly bombarded by tweets, endless mindless scrolling, right? The news, and just streams and streams of data, the stories are our anchors, right? So these stories, they remind us that, hey, we're all humans navigating this journey together. So whether it's through a really good book, or maybe a heartfelt movie, stories so they show us life's reflections, right? They make us laugh, they make us cry, or maybe even scream, like if it's a really scary story. And in doing so, they bring us as people a little bit closer, right? All right. So have you ever noticed that how some brands just seem to just pull you in their world, right? And before you know it, you are just hooked. You are just hooked to that good story. So let's look at Apple, for instance, right? So Apple is not just selling tech, computers and phones, right? What they're selling is an experience, right? They sell a story. So it's not about just, for example, when you have phones, right? And the ads for these, it's not just about the megapixel or the capacity, right? It's about challenging the norm, right? Thinking differently and belonging to a community of Apple fan boys or girls, right? And just communities of innovators, right? Depending on which field you're in. And let me just paint a picture for you. I don't know if you remember this 1984 Apple commercial. Some of you are probably not old enough, but Apple released a 1984 commercial, and it wasn't just an ad, right? It wasn't an ad about a computer. So it was a cinematic experience. It was Apple's way of saying, hey, we're here and we're doing things differently. And people loved it at the time because, again, it wasn't about a computer, right? And it was about a revolution. You see, back then, only the government and very, very, very select few, but mostly the government had computers, right? And this is in the early 80s. So the ad didn't talk about the features or the how the processor or the memory or the benefits of owning a computer. Instead, the ad was about telling people that the power could be literally in their hands. So I encourage you, just Google Apple 1984 commercial and you'll see what I'm talking about if you haven't seen it. Or even in the later, their Apple's later advertisements, I don't know if you remember the Think Different campaign. So it wasn't a showcase of product specs, right? But instead they highlighted people like Albert Einstein, they highlighted Bob Dylan and Martin Luther King Jr. And that's their way of tying their brand to the idea of visionary thinking and innovation. So they're telling people, join us, and you're not just buying a gadget, right? You're becoming a part of this visionary journey. So in essence, Apple is the master class when it comes to brand storytelling. So they don't just sell products, they sell dreams, they sell ideas and an identity, right? And that's why we don't just like Apple, right? We feel something for Apple. Unless you like legitimately hate Apple, or if you're like a Samsung fan, right? But in general, people who love Apple, they love Apple, the company, the brand, not just the products, because they were able to tap into the emotional and the human side of business, and showing us that it's not just about what you sell, but the story you tell, and that is genius marketing. And speaking of stories, let's chat about social media for a second. So you see, platforms like Instagram and Facebook, they aren't just for selfies and vacation pictures anymore. Brands that really use social media use it as a stage to tell their stories and connect with their audience on a deeply personal level. So when a brand, for example, shares a relatable quote, right? Or maybe a behind the scenes look, or even just the challenges that they face that shows vulnerability, what happens is it creates a genuine bond between their brand and their followers, right? So it's no longer about pushing products, and it's about sharing experiences. And we're talking about emotional connections, right? It translates to likes, comments, and even shares, right? And most importantly, brand loyalty, right? So in this world of social media where every post just vies for attention, a compelling story is what makes us stop and engage with whatever post that is, right? By a like or a share. That's us telling them, oh, hey, I feel this too, whatever this is. So it also applies to reciprocity, right? So have you ever had a friend who, say, buys you a coffee out of the blue, just buys you coffee, and then the next time you're in line at the coffee shop, you feel compelled and you want to return the favor, right? And that's because of reciprocity. It's another powerful psychological principle that's been around since, I don't know, forever, right? And at its core, it's all about our innate desire to give back when something is given to us. It's almost like an unspoken social rule or social contract. Now let's bring this into today's digital world. So think about your favorite brands on social media. Have you ever noticed why or how they might share a free tip, maybe an ebook or a behind the scenes look, or even just a heartfelt thank you for being a customer, right? So these gestures, whether it be big or small, it makes us feel like we owe them something in return, right? And as followers, now we are more likely to engage by liking, commenting, or sharing their content, all because they gave us something first. But here's the real magic. It doesn't always have to be something tangible, right? Sometimes all it takes is a simple acknowledgement or maybe responding to a comment does the trick, right? So when a brand takes a moment, those few seconds to recognize and interact with their followers, it feels personal, right? And we think, wow, they noticed me. And just like that, we are more likely to stay engaged and stay connected. So the next time you're wondering how to boost your brand engagement, remember that coffee scenario, right? A little give can lead to a lot of take in the future. And this is when it comes to social media. And it's all about building genuine relationships, okay? And the principle of reciprocity can be your secret weapon. So give it a shot, share a bit of love, and you can do that now by liking this video, making a comment, or sharing our group, right? It's just a little gesture like that, and guess what? I'm gonna keep on giving these valuable content to you guys. Okay, now let's talk about creating content that encourages habitual checking, right? So have you ever felt that little buzz of excitement when you get like a ding on your phone, right? Or a new notification? Maybe somebody liked your most recent post, or maybe somebody left a comment, or even just a friend tagging your name in their post. There's a rush, right? There's like this very short-lived rush in our brains, and that's our brain getting a dose of dopamine, right? So dopamine is a feel-good chemical that our brain not secretes is a bad word. It just shoots it out, right? I'm having trouble speaking English right now, but it's nature's way of rewarding us, and in the digital age, our brains are often seeking out these hits from our devices. And here's where it gets intriguing for content creators, right? We can craft content that taps into this dopamine driven loop by producing engaging and share worthy posts, or maybe interactive stories. We can encourage our audience to come back and keep checking habitually, right? So think about polls, maybe questions, or even like stories with cliffhangers, right? That create anticipation from our audience. And the idea is to create content that makes people stop scrolling, right? And engage with your brand or your content. So the next time you're brainstorming your content strategy, think about how you can offer these little dopamine hits. Okay, so remember, it's not about spamming or clickbaiting your audience. It's about delivering value in a way that's engaging and rewarding for your audience. So just keep them. It keeps them coming back for more, and you'll be on the way to creating a truly connected community. And you can also apply this on your email marketing strategy if that's something that you do, right? Let me give you an example. So have you ever walked into a store with tons of options and think, where do I even start shopping, right? Where do I even begin? And there's something that's called the paradox of choice. And it's this idea that the more options we have, the harder it is to make a decision, right? So it sounds counterintuitive, right? But it's why sometimes standing in front of an ice cream truck with like maybe 50 flavors can feel more overwhelming than exciting. Now, let's take that concept to your inbox, to your email, right? You get an email, for example, and it's jam-packed. It's jam-packed with images, maybe 10 different links, call to action, and I don't know, people love sharing GIFs or GIFs, however what do you call it. So it is a visual, it's overwhelming visually, right? And think about this, where do your eyes go when that happened, right? What do you click on first with all those choices? Or do you just close the email or maybe delete it because it's too much, right? And that's the paradox of choice in action, right? So when it comes to email design, at least for me and my team, is less is often more. That's sort of the rule, right? So a clean layout with one clear message and maybe one call to action, two the most, right? It can do wonders. And it reduces the cognitive load and makes the recipient's journey a lot smoother. So next time you're crafting that newsletter or maybe promo email, and you feel like, oh, I want to put everything here. So resist that urge, okay, to put everything in that one email. So stick to the essentials and you will see better engagement. And I don't know, like I'm a vanilla guy, right? So and sometimes a scoop of vanilla ice cream is, for me, it's way more satisfying than like a sundae with 20 different toppings. That's just me. But anyway, let's go back to the topic. So another email marketing principle I want to share with you is the principle of commitment. I know it's a lot of information, but the video is going to stay here so you can rewatch this. But they're all tied together. Sorry, I digress. What was I saying? Principle of commitment. Okay, so if you ever find yourself in a store, maybe just casually browsing, and then the salesperson offers you like a small free sample or maybe a quick demo of a product. Before you know it, you're working or not working. You are. I'm having a hard time speaking today. I'm just too excited. Okay, so before you know it, you're walking out with a full product, right? A full-size product in hand. You think that's by accident? Nope. That is the psychological principle of commitment. Okay, so the idea behind that principle is that once we take a tiny step, which is taking that little sample towards something, we're way more likely to follow through with bigger steps. So here's the magic. This isn't just limited to physical stores. Okay, so this works wonders in the digital or online businesses as well. Okay, so think about those brands that get you to sign up for a free trial, or they just ask you to simply just like the post, right? That's not random. They're not just throwing stuff in the dark, right? So by getting you to commit to that little action, they're setting the stage for you to maybe, just maybe, take bigger actions down the road. Okay, so it's like starting with like a snowball, right? It starts with a tiny snowball and then rolling it down the hill until it becomes this whole massive thing, right? So now let's talk email marketing. So when you try to engage with subscribers, don't go all in with the big ask right away. Okay, start small. Maybe get them to fill out a 2-question survey or click on an intriguing article, right? So it seems minor, but each of these small micro commitments is a step closer to the bigger commitment or a bigger conversion, right? So whether it's making a purchase or signing up for a webinar or any other significant action, right? So next time you're brainstorming your email strategy, remember, it's not about the home run, right? Sometimes it's those little base hits that when you add it up, right, it can lead to a bigger score. So start small, build that commitment, and watch your subscribers move seamlessly towards those bigger conversions. Okay, we're down with secret number 2. It's 45 minutes, so this is kind of a long webinar, but it's very powerful. And I know, again, it's a lot of content. Just come back and rewatch this. We're on our third and last secret. Third secret. Now, how do we inject the psychology into your web design, your website design? Have you ever wondered why certain apps or certain websites just feel right? It feels like you're at home, you're comfortable being on that website. They're like reading your mind, right? And they like they know exactly what you're looking for. Well, it's not magic. It's the blend of user experience design, right? User experience design that when sprinkled with a little bit of psychology in there. So let's talk about how understanding human behavior can elevate your experience to a whole new level. All right, so let's talk about website design. Have you ever been to Cheesecake Factory? It's not my favorite place to eat in the world because of one thing. It's not their food. It's not that their food is bad. It's because of their menu, right? So their menu is like a book. It's like, I don't know, maybe 20 pages, right? And you go through it, and by page 5, I'm just overwhelmed. And I would sometimes tell the waiter, just bring me something, whatever, surprise me, right? And that's called, there's a psychological phenomenon there called, well, it's not a phenomenon, but it's more of like a principle. It's called the Hicks Law, right? And that's what it's all about. But for the digital world, right? It suggests that the more options you present to your users or to your website viewers, the longer it will take them to make a decision. So when you're designing your website or your app, so it's super crucial to keep the choices streamlined and straightforward, right? So imagine a website that are just cluttered with buttons, tabs, links. It's chaotic, right? And I'll bet half those options won't even get a click, right? So by simplifying and presenting only the most essential choices, you not only declutter that page, but you also makes the user's journey smoother and faster, right? Remember, the goal is to guide users where you want them to go. You can just say, hey, here's the website, you go at it. You have to guide them where to go. So, and that's because of the psychological principle, right? You do not leave them lost in a maze of choices, right? And while it may be tempting to show every feature of our product, we have to prioritize, right? We got to give them a clear path and make their experience delightful. And again, trust me, they'll keep coming back for more. So when I'm shopping online, or if I'm trying out a new service, there's always that little voice in the back of my head asking, "Is this legit?" Right? And I'm guessing you probably felt that way too. And that's where trust elements come to play, right? They're like the digital world's version of like a pat in the back telling you, it's like, don't worry, you're in good hands, right? How do we apply this to our website design? First up is testimonials, right? There's nothing quite like hearing from people who've been there and done that, right? So reading a testimonial, having this on your website, can often be the difference between clicking that buy now button or closing that tab, right? So it's the online equivalent of asking your best friend for movie recommendations, right? So that's why I think I try to insert this on every live stream, because it's extremely important. What else? There are also guarantees. Oh, I forgot guarantees. So guarantees is like a safety net, right? So you know those 30-day money back guarantee or whatever guarantee that you can put on your website. It's like a brand's way of saying, hey, we believe in what we're offering so much that if you're not satisfied, we got you covered, right? And that puts our mind at ease, right? That it's not such a big risk anymore. And lastly, those little trust badges that you see on websites, right? They might look small, but they're super powerful. So it's like when you see someone with, I don't know, if you see someone with a lab coat, you instantly trust them a bit more, right? But in the online world, seeing badges from like different reputable sources, like, oh, if I have a badge for the Better from the Better Business Bureau, or whatever industry you're in that has like maybe a governing body that gives you a badge, it makes you kind of legit, right? And that helps. That helps your audience trust you or your brand even more. So the next time you see these little trust elements, know that they are working their magic to make you feel secure and confident in your choices. Now, when it comes to CTAs or call to actions, right, and conversions, maybe you found yourself on a website, and among all the content, okay, there's this one button that just screams saying click me. Look at Amazon, for example. That buy now button is very prominent. You're psychologically inclined to click on it. So there is actually a cool name for why that button called your attention, and it's called the von Restorff effect. Okay, the concept is super simple. It basically says that when multiple similar objects are present, the one that stands out is more likely to be remembered. So let's break this down a bit. Imagine you're at a party, right? Imagine you're at a party and everyone's wearing black and white, okay? But then someone walks in wearing a bright red dress. Now, who do you think you're going to remember at the end of the night, right? And that's the von Restorff effect in action. It's about creating contrast. It's making something stand out so they can easily be remembered. So when we're talking about websites and CTAs or call to action, this effect is such a game changer. So you see, amidst the paragraphs, all the words, the images, the headers, that button that's asking you to sign up or whatever action you want them to do, right? It needs to pop. It needs to be prominent. It's not just about being flashy. It's about guiding the user's eyes and the user's journey, making it super clear what they should do next. Okay? And the best part, it's not just limited to color. So think about different shapes, maybe animations, or even the size of the button. So the key is differentiation, right? So the next time you're on a site and you feel like you're magnetically drawn to a button, right? Take a moment to appreciate that smart design choice, because that's the von Restorff effect working on you. So lastly, let's talk about something that's almost always next to that call to action that drives people to buy or to take action. Have you ever been online shopping and noticed that the little tag that says only three items left, or sale ends in 2 hours, right? We briefly talked about this earlier. So that gives you like an itch to quickly add that thing to the cart, right? And we all fall for that. And that's the scarcity principle, right? That's working its magic on us. So essentially, it's the idea that we place higher value on things that are limited or short in supply. And we're more likely to act quickly when we think we might miss out, right? So that's the scarcity principle. Think about it like this, okay? So imagine you're at your favorite bakery, right? You're at your favorite bakery, and there's this one butter croissant left. And then you see another customer looking at that one croissant, right? So now the stakes are higher, right? That croissant all of a sudden becomes the most important pastry in that room, right? So that's the scarcity principle, tapping into our natural fear of missing out, or the FOMO effect. Yeah. So it is a real thing, and marketers really take advantage of this. And this principle isn't just limited to physical products or time-sensitive sales. It can also be about experiences. So, for example, I don't know if you've ever seen these exclusive member only events, right? Or limited time webinars. So this is the idea is by missing out, you're not just losing a product, you're missing out on a unique experience with it, along with everybody else, right? So it's about creating that sense of urgency. But here's a little pro tip for both consumers and creators. So it's essential to use that scarcity principle genuinely, okay? So you don't want to say it ends tonight, right? Let's say you put a promo out there and say, oh, ending tonight. And then tomorrow it's still there, right? So it has to be genuine. So you don't want to overuse it, or you don't want to not be honest. Because what happens is, instead of us trying to get people's trust, we are eroding that trust. Okay, so let's be real. If that sale is ending soon every week, people are going to catch on, right? So be careful with that. So, but when done right, it's a really potent tool in the world of marketing and consumer psychology. That ends our secret number 3. But before we wrap things up, I got a little challenge for you all. So now we've gone over a ton of golden nuggets tonight, but without applying them, they're just cool facts, right? And we don't want to waste these facts. So I prepared some action items for each section that we have covered. So consider it your homework. It's one thing to absorb information by watching these videos, but it's another when you put it into action, right? And that's where the real magic happens, when you're taking action over something. And I strongly encourage you to take these steps very seriously. Okay, so they're designed to push you forward and truly integrate everything that we've discussed. So I'm giving some action items for each of the secrets we have covered tonight. So with the secret number 1, the basics of human psychology. Okay, your action item or your homework is to dive into a foundational psychology book or maybe a research paper this week, right? One thing I would recommend is this book, right? If you haven't read this is a very powerful book. It's called Influence, the Psychology of Persuasion by Robert Cialdini, right? So this book teaches us the key principles, and it gets you to think about everyday applications, not just in business. So this book doesn't apply only in business, but how to be persuasive as a person. That's homework number 1 for secret number 1. Homework number 2 for secret number 2. Psychology-driven marketing strategies, right? So your homework or your action item is to review your current marketing campaigns and identify one area where one or more of these principles can be leveraged. Okay, so maybe it's incorporating social proof through customer testimonials or reviews, or maybe invoking the scarcity principle in with maybe a limited time offer with whatever you're selling. Number 2. Now, number 3, for secret number 3, optimizing your user experience with psychology. Okay, action item. This is a little bit harder, but it's going to be worth it. Is to conduct a user test of your website this month. Okay, so observe the user behaviors and note the areas of friction, where their eyes stop when they're looking at your websites. And then cross-reference these findings with psychological principles so you can create a more intuitive user experience. So there are tools out there that you can load or you can embed on your website that actually records and logs the clicks and the scrolls of people visiting to your website. And that tells you, if they're scrolling, where do they stop? What are they looking at? Gives you an idea of where they're looking at. Obviously, you can't see the exact words they're looking at, but at least when they scroll to a certain area of your website, you know what stops them on their tracks, right? So now there are tools you can use to conduct these tests. Some are free. I don't know if there's still free stuff. There should be some. One of these should be free, right? but some are paid. But if you want full usability, you're probably going to have to pay for this. So these are some of the tools. Usability, you can just Google it, right? Usability Hub, lookback.io, user testing, optimal workshop. This is my favorite, Hotjar. Okay, Hotjar. It gives you a heat map of your website, so it tells you where they're clicking, and they also record all these sessions, right? Next is Crazy Egg and Maze.design. Okay, so again, this is a little hard. This is a little harder homework, but this tells you if your website is effective. And I think it's super important that the website's effective because you spend so much time, energy, and maybe even money designing that website. But if people just click out of it, what's the point, right? So it's a waste. So the key is understanding what your users see, what they click on, or if they're clicking out, we need to figure out why are they clicking out? What is it about your content that makes them click away? Especially if you're not converting. It's we got to do that. All right, to recap. So we just wrapped up a deep dive into the world of psychology, okay? And how powerful it is when tied to digital marketing. So from understanding our love of stories or compelling stories to uncovering the psychological reasons behind our buying decisions, we've covered some seriously fascinating ground, right? I don't know, did you catch those tidbits about the colors that brand uses, or other brands use, or how our eyes naturally navigate on a Z or an F pattern when reading an article or looking at a website? And also, don't forget your homework assignments. You know, they're the golden nuggets to help elevate your next project. And you know what's the real eye-opener, guys? The whole discussion about social proof, because that's why you're here. That's why you're in this group. It's called social proof strategies, right? That's why you're here, because that's what we want to learn, and that's what I'm here to teach you and actually learn from you as well. So it's intriguing to think about how we, as humans, lean so much on the opinions and actions of other people, right? So testimonials, reviews, and even seeing a product trending on social media can powerfully influence our choices. So this isn't just a passing trend, okay? This is not a 2023 thing. It's buried deep into it's wired into our psychology. So brands that harness this effectively aren't just following marketing hacks or marketing trends or best practices. They are tapping into human behavior. So next time you see a bunch of raving reviews, or if a friend recommends a product, take a moment to appreciate that psychology working for you. Right? So that's it for tonight. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you on the next video.